He's in the audience, right now, with a gun. The voice crackled through Dean Martin's earpiece as he stood backstage at the Riviera Casino, 30 seconds from showtime. His heart hammered against his ribs, but his face remained perfectly calm. Years of performing had taught him how to smile while the world burned. "Which section?" Dean whispered, adjusting his bow tie in the mirror. "We don't know. Could be anywhere. Front row, balcony, bar? We're scanning faces, but there's 2,000 people out there." Frank Sinatra burst into the dressing room. "Dean, we gotta cancel. Get you out of here." "Can't." Dean turned to face his friend. "If I don't go on, he shoots someone else. That's what the note said. Perform or they die. Then we call the cops." "No cops." He was very clear about that too. Dean pulled the crumpled note from his pocket, read it aloud. "Sing for your life, Dino. Every song is a clue. Miss one, someone bleeds. Run, everyone dies. You have 8 songs. Figure it out." The stage manager appeared at the door. "Mr. Martin, you're on in 10. Dean grabbed his microphone, felt its familiar weight. How many times had he held this? 1,000? 10,000? Now it might be the last. "Frank, I need you in the control booth. Watch the crowd. Anyone moves wrong, signal me." "What's the signal?" "You'll think of something." The curtain rose. Spotlights blazed. 2,000 faces stared up at him. A sea of strangers in tuxedos and evening gowns. Somewhere among them sat a killer. Somewhere was a clue that would save his life. The orchestra began. Dean smiled that legendary smile and launched into "Ain't That a Kick in the Head?" Dean's voice filled the showroom, smooth as aged whiskey, but his eyes scanned the crowd. Front tables, businessmen with their wives. Middle section, tourists taking photos. Balcony, shadows and cigarette smoke. In his earpiece, Frank's voice, "Nothing yet. Keep singing." But Dean had already spotted something. Table 7, third row, a man in a gray suit, not watching the show, watching the exits, hand inside his jacket. Dean shifted his position on stage, moving closer to that side. The man's head snapped up. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. Not him. Too obvious. Too nervous. Security, probably. Looking for the same person Dean was. The song ended. Applause thundered. Dean bowed, his mind racing. Every song is a clue. He'd sung "Ain't That a Kick in the Head?" What did that mean? A kick? Head? Then he saw it. A cocktail napkin on the piano, left there by someone. Words written in red lipstick. "Look up." Dean's eyes lifted to the balcony. A flash of movement. Someone in the back row, standing, heading for the stairs. "Frank, balcony, back row, moving." "On it." Dean grabbed the microphone. Thank you. You're a beautiful audience. This next one's special. Everybody loves somebody." As he sang, he watched Frank slip into the balcony entrance, watched security quietly moving through the crowd, watched a woman in a red dress at table 12 staring at him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. The woman raised a champagne glass, smiled, mouthed something. Dean couldn't read lips perfectly, but it looked like tick, tuck. "Dean, false alarm. Guy in the balcony was just drunk." Dean finished "Everybody Loves Somebody" to wild applause, but his focus stayed on the woman in red. She was writing something on a napkin, folded it, placed it on her table, stood up, and walked toward the ladies' room. "Frank, red dress, table 12, leaving now."
"I see her. Want me to follow?"
"No, check the napkin she left." Dean launched into "That's Amore," his signature song, the one that always brought the house down. But tonight, it felt like a funeral dirge. Every word, every note might be his last. A waiter approached table 12, picked up the napkin, walked it backstage. 30 seconds later, Frank's voice. "Dean, you need to see this. I'm kind of in the middle of something, Pally." It's a photo of you from 1952 at a boxing match in Chicago. You're shaking hands with someone who's supposed to be dead. Dean's voice almost cracked on the next line. 1952, Chicago, The underground fights, the money he'd needed so desperately before his career took off, the things he'd done, the people he'd known. Who's in the photo? Tommy the Hammer Marcetti. Dean's blood turned to ice. Tommy Marcetti, his best friend, his training partner, the man he'd fought in the bloodiest match of his life, the match that was supposed to be fixed, the match where Tommy was supposed to take a dive in the 5th round. Except, Tommy didn't dive. Tommy fought for real, and Dean, defending himself, had hit him so hard that Tommy collapsed, stayed down, never got up. They'd told Dean that Tommy died in the hospital 3 days later, brain hemorrhage, accident, not murder, just a tragedy of the underground fight world. But if Tommy was alive... Frank, where's the woman? She never came back from the restroom. Dean finished That's Amore, and the crowd erupted. He barely heard them. His mind was in Chicago, 1952, in a warehouse basement with blood on the canvas, and Tommy's eyes rolling back in his head. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dean said into the microphone, his voice steady despite the hurricane in his chest, "let's slow things down. This is Memories Are Made of This." The irony wasn't lost on him. Halfway through the song, Dean saw him. Back corner, half hidden in shadow, a man in a dark suit, face mostly obscured by a fedora. But Dean would recognize that stance anywhere. The slight favor of the left leg, the way the shoulders rolled forward. A boxer's posture. Tommy Marcetti was alive, and he was here. Dean's voice continued on autopilot while his world collapsed. If Tommy was alive, if he'd been alive all these years, that meant everything Dean had been told was a lie. The guilt he'd carried, the nightmares, the drinking to forget, all based on a fiction. But why? Why fake his death? Why come back now? Every song is a clue. Memories are made of this. Tommy wanted Dean to remember Chicago, to remember what really happened. Dean remembered. The fight, the fixed match, but it wasn't just about money. There'd been something else. A briefcase in the promoter's office. Tommy had seen it, asked questions. The promoter, what was his name? Salvatore something, had gotten angry, threatened Tommy. 2 days before the fight, Tommy pulled Dean aside. "Dino, something's wrong. That briefcase, I think it's got evidence. Photos, documents, Sal's working with the feds, flipping on the Chicago outfit. If they find out..." And then the fight happened, and Tommy went down and disappeared. He hadn't died, he'd been disappeared. Witness protection probably, hidden away because he knew too much. So why surface now? Why risk everything to come to Vegas, to this show? The song ended. Dean's hands were shaking. He hid them behind the microphone stand. "Frank, the man in the back corner, dark suit, fedora, that's our guy." "I don't see..." "Wait, yeah, I got him. Want security?" "No, he's not here to kill me. He's here to warn me." "Warn you about what?" Dean saw it then, saw the whole picture. Salvatore, Sal the Butcher Romano, had been arrested in 1953, ratted out by an anonymous tip, served 15 years, got out last month, and he'd want revenge on the person who talked, on Tommy Marcetti. But nobody knew Tommy was alive, nobody except the feds, unless... "Frank, check if Sal Romano is in Vegas." Silence. Then, "Jesus Christ, Dean, he checked into the Flamingo yesterday." The pieces clicked together. Someone had told Sal that Tommy was alive, that Tommy was coming here tonight, and Sal had come to finish what he'd started 20 years ago. But who told him? Who knew? Dean started the next song, Sway, but his eyes were locked on Tommy in the shadows.
As Dean sang, Tommy moved, slowly, deliberately, through the crowd toward the stage. Security started to close in, but Dean gave a subtle headshake. Not yet. Tommy reached the front, close enough that Dean could see his face clearly now. Older, scarred, but alive, so alive. Tommy's lips moved. Table 5, white suit. He's got the gun. Dean's eyes flicked to Table 5 without missing a beat in the song. A man in an expensive white suit, mid-50s, perfectly groomed. Sal the Butcher Romano, and his hand was under the table. But the gun wasn't pointed at Dean. It was pointed at Tommy. "Frank, we got a problem. Table 5, white suit. He's armed and he's about to shoot someone in the crowd. What do we do?" Dean finished Sway with a flourish, then did something he'd never done before. He jumped off the stage, right into the audience. The crowd gasped, delighted. This was showmanship at its finest.
Dean returned to the stage, Tommy following. The audience was electric now. This was the greatest show they'd ever seen, even if they didn't understand half of it. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dean said into the microphone, "my old friend Tommy here has a story to tell. But first, how about the good life?" As the orchestra played, Dean sang, but his mind was working. Someone in witness protection was selling names. Someone with federal access. That meant the threat wasn't just to Tommy. It was to dozens, maybe hundreds of protected witnesses. And then Dean remembered the woman in red. The one who'd left the photo. She'd never come back from the restroom. "Frank, the woman in red. We need to find her, now." Already on it, security footage shows she left through the kitchen exit. She was wearing a wig, blonde underneath. And Dean, she had a federal badge clipped to her purse. A Fed? Someone inside the system. Dean finished The Good Life and moved straight into Return to Me, never giving the audience time to question what was happening. Tommy stood at the edge of the stage, watching the exits. Her name is Jennifer Corso, deputy marshal. She's been assigned to witness protection for 8 years, and according to her file, she's been in Vegas all week. 3 witnesses under her protection have been compromised in the last 6 months. "She's selling them out," Dean said under his breath, the microphone away from his face. "Looks like it. And Dean, one of those witnesses was supposed to testify tomorrow against the Chicago outfit, against the people who ran those underground fights." Everything connected. Jennifer Corso was cleaning house, eliminating anyone who could testify about the old operations. Tommy was on that list, and now Dean was too, because he'd been there, seen things, known people. The song ended. Dean made a decision. "Ladies and gentlemen, this next song is dedicated to the truth, no matter how ugly. It's called I've Got You Under My Skin." He sang, and as he did, he told the story, carefully, cleverly, woven into the performance, about underground boxing, about fixes and payoffs, about federal corruption. The audience thought it was patter, showbiz talk, but every word was being recorded by the Riviera's sound system. Evidence. Dean returned to the stage, Tommy following. The audience was electric now. This was the greatest show they'd ever seen, even if they didn't understand half of it. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dean said into the microphone, "my old friend Tommy here has a story to tell. But first, how about the good life?" As the orchestra played, Dean sang, but his mind was working. Someone in witness protection was selling names. Someone with federal access. That meant the threat wasn't just to Tommy. It was to dozens, maybe hundreds of protected witnesses. And then Dean remembered the woman in red. The one who'd left the photo. She'd never come back from the restroom. "Frank, the woman in red. We need to find her, now." Already on it, security footage shows she left through the kitchen exit. She was wearing a wig, blonde underneath. And Dean, she had a federal badge clipped to her purse. A Fed? Someone inside the system. Dean finished The Good Life and moved straight into Return to Me, never giving the audience time to question what was happening. Tommy stood at the edge of the stage, watching the exits. Her name is Jennifer Corso, deputy marshal. She's been assigned to witness protection for 8 years, and according to her file, she's been in Vegas all week. 3 witnesses under her protection have been compromised in the last 6 months. "She's selling them out," Dean said under his breath, the microphone away from his face. Looks like it. And Dean, one of those witnesses was supposed to testify tomorrow against the Chicago outfit, against the people who ran those underground fights. Everything connected. Jennifer Corso was cleaning house, eliminating anyone who could testify about the old operations. Tommy was on that list, and now Dean was too, because he'd been there, seen things, known people. The song ended. Dean made a decision. Ladies and gentlemen, this next song is dedicated to the truth, no matter how ugly. It's called I've Got You Under My Skin. He sang, and as he did, he told the story, carefully, cleverly, woven into the performance, about underground boxing, about fixes and payoffs, about federal corruption. The audience thought it was patter, showbiz talk, but every word was being recorded by the Riviera's sound system. Evidence. Jennifer Corso reappeared during the sixth song. Dean spotted her immediately, blonde now, no wig, standing at the bar with a phone to her ear, making a call, probably to the people she was working for. Frank, she's back. Bar, West Side. Want me to grab her? No. Let her think we don't know. Let her make her move. Dean launched into You're Nobody Till Somebody Loves You, the song Sal had requested. Fitting somehow. All of this, the fights, the lies, the betrayals, came down to loyalty, to the people you loved and the people who loved you back. Tommy caught Dean's eye from the stage. Dean gave a subtle nod toward the bar. Tommy saw Jennifer and his face went pale. That's her, Tommy said quietly, moving to Dean's side. She's the one who's been tracking me. I recognize her from a safe house check last year. Jennifer saw Tommy, saw that he'd seen her. Her hand moved to her jacket. Dean kept singing, but his body tensed. The audience was oblivious, clapping along, having the time of their lives. Jennifer started moving toward the stage. Security moved too, but she flashed her badge. They hesitated, confused. She was 10 feet from the stage when Dean finished the song. And now, Dean said, his voice carrying across the showroom, for my last number tonight, I'd like to bring up a special guest, Deputy Marshal Jennifer Corso. Come on up here and take a bow. The spotlight swung to her. The audience applauded. She was trapped. Refuse and look suspicious, or play along and get close to her targets. She chose to play along. Jennifer climbed the stage, smiling that practiced federal agent smile. Mr. Martin, I'm just here to enjoy the show. Oh, but you're part of the show now, Dean said, into the microphone for everyone to hear. Deputy Marshal Corso has been protecting witnesses for years, keeping people safe. Isn't that right? That's right. People like Tommy here, people who know dangerous secrets, people who could bring down criminal organizations. Jennifer's smile never wavered, but her eyes were ice. Yes, that's the job. Must be hard knowing all those secrets, knowing where everyone is, knowing who they are, what they've seen. Must be tempting to, I don't know, use that information? The audience was confused now. This wasn't a typical Dean Martin show. Mr. Martin, I'm not sure what you're implying. I'm implying that 3 witnesses under your protection have been killed in 6 months. I'm implying that you've been selling locations to the very people these witnesses were running from. I'm implying that you're about to be arrested. The spotlight brightened. FBI agents emerged from the crowd, real ones, not Corso's people. Frank had made calls during the show, had brought in the authorities. Jennifer's hand went for her gun, but Tommy was faster. Years of boxing reflexes saved both their lives as he knocked the weapon away. The audience screamed. Security flooded the stage. Dean grabbed the microphone stand as Jennifer lunged at Dean, using it to block her attack. And then it was over. Jennifer Corso was on the ground, agents on top of her, cuffing her. The showroom erupted in chaos. Dean stood there, breathing hard, microphone still in his hand. Well, Dean said into it, his voice shaking slightly, that's what I call a finale. 2 hours later, After statements to the FBI and assurances to the Riviera management, Dean and Tommy sat in Dean's dressing room, sharing a bottle of genuine whiskey. "You saved my life tonight," Tommy said. "You saved mine first. Chicago, remember? You told me about Sal's deal with the feds, kept me out of it. We were kids, stupid kids who thought we could fight our way out of poverty. We did, though. I'm here, you're alive. That's something." Tommy raised his glass. "To survival." "To survival," Dean echoed. "So what now?" Tommy asked. "You going back to singing like none of this happened?" Dean smiled. "I got one more song to sing tonight. Come on." They walked back to the stage. The showroom was mostly empty now, just cleaning crew and a few stragglers, but Dean approached the microphone anyway. He sang "One for My Baby" without accompaniment, just his voice in the empty room. Tommy listened, and in that moment, they were back in Chicago, two young fighters with dreams too big for the basement rings they fought in. When Dean finished, Tommy was crying. "Thank you, Dino." "For what?" "For remembering, for not forgetting who we were." The next night, Dean Martin returned to the Riviera stage. The showroom was packed. Word had spread about the previous night's drama. Everyone wanted to see if lightning would strike twice. It didn't. The show was smooth, professional, perfect. Dean sang all the hits, told all the jokes, and at the end, he dedicated his final song to old friends and new beginnings. He sang "That's Life," because that's what it was. Life. Messy, dangerous, beautiful, and utterly unpredictable. Tommy Marcetti sat in the front row, no longer hiding, no longer afraid. Jennifer Corso was in federal custody, her buyers being rounded up. The witnesses she'd compromised were being relocated again, given new protections. And Dean Martin, crooner, movie star, legend, had just pulled off the greatest performance of his life. Not because of the songs, but because he'd faced his past, saved his friend, and proved that even in a world of lies and violence, loyalty still mattered. The curtain fell to thunderous applause. Dean took his bow, and for the first time in 20 years, he slept without nightmares. Dean put his hand on his old friend's shoulder. "How could I forget? You made me who I am.